On today's episode, we're going to talk about how women can be empowered in their relationships, how they can have a voice, come out and state their feelings, their needs, be heard, and be well received, as well as how can men become more grounded, better listeners, and more receptive so that all parties in a relationship have a healthier and stronger marriage. Welcome to Thriving Launch with Louise Congdon and Kamala Chambers, the show for heart-centered entrepreneurs who want it all.
5 days a week, we bring you different segments to inspire you to live a life of freedom. We interview the leading experts in the field of business, health, and love. Be sure to check out Training Tuesdays, where we give you a clear action plan to grow your own business.
Do you have a product or service that you would like to sell online? Or maybe you've been thinking about it, but you're reserved to do it because you need a website, you need complicated systems, and you need to spend money? Well, I've created a completely free course that teaches you how to use Facebook in a purely organic way. This means no ads and no money are needed. You can use Facebook completely free. So head on over to thrivinglaunch.com. Opt into my Profit from Social Media course. I'm going to teach you the free methods to using Facebook to make money today.
In this episode, we're going to talk with the founder of the Relational Life Institute and a best-selling author. Welcome to the show, Terry Real.
Today, we're going to be talking about how women can have strong, affirmative, and grounded voices, boundaries, and an ability to ask for what they want, as well as how can men be more receptive, more vulnerable, and more tender, and more giving in their relationship.
We are here with Terry Real. I am so thrilled to have you here, Terry, because this is such an important topic that we're going to get into today. Women having strong, loving voices and men opening their hearts. Where do you even begin with that process?
Well, the first thing I think that we can name is that probably you're going to begin with the women. And the reason why you're going to begin with the women is because it's probably the woman who is more unfulfilled or wanting more in her relationship between the two of them. That's not always true. Now, let me just say at the outset, when I speak about men this, women that, I admit that I'm talking about broad generalizations and there's lots of exceptions, but let's start somewhere. This is an introductory talk. And so I'm going to say men tend to this and women tend to that. And we all understand there's lots of exceptions to that. But one of the things that I say is one of the open secrets of being a couples therapist for now heading toward 30 years is that by and large, men are not that unhappy in their marriages. Men are unhappy that the women are unhappy with them. My specialty is working with couples on the brink of divorce. They come in from around the country and we spend 2 days together. At the end of those 2 days, we decide whether you're going to get a lawyer or whether you're back on track. It's one or the other. And even in these extreme circumstances where the marriage is hanging by a thread, when I ask the woman to go into the waiting room for a few minutes and talk to the guy alone, I get some version of, hey, you know, things aren't that bad around here. If you could just kind of get her, off my back, I think we'd be okay. I bring in the woman and it's like, this marriage needs a substantial overhaul. And there are reasons why women are the carriers of dissatisfaction right now, which we can get into. But it's part of the cultural change that's going on for men and women and for marriage.
I would definitely love to hear from you why it is, in your opinion, that women are the carriers of the dissatisfaction and the feeling that things aren't working.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's really simple. If you look back at the last century, one of the key historical notes will be the changing role of women, right? Particularly in the last half of the last century. Women have been introduced into the workforce. Women are making money. Women no longer need marriage in order to survive. In the same way that, for example, somebody in Jane Austen's time, back then, a woman is either married or she's impoverished. She's living in a little hut somewhere. And it's all about being married. That was what you did to survive. Nowadays, women can survive and thrive quite well on their own. Thank you very much. And that's brand new. And so women are asking for more from marriage than marriage has historically ever promised. One of the things I say is that we're all asking for levels of intimacy in our marriage that is historically brand new. It's really a revolution. But if you look a little closer, if you drill down a bit, it isn't so much that we are asking for more levels of intimacy, it's that women are asking for more levels of intimacy. And the problem for us guys is that across the board, women are asking for levels of emotional intimacy and vulnerability and connection that traditionally men have not been raised to deliver. There is a disjuncture between the way we raise boys, which is changing, but far from changed, and what men are expected of as they reach adulthood. Over and over again, I'll have some poor guy in my office who doesn't communicate, or he's shut down, or he's demeaning and controlling. And I will say to the guy, you know what? You're a statistic. There are millions of guys being dragged into couples therapist office across the U.S. and Canada, and not all of them have had terrible mothers. I can't blame everybody's mother for this. There's something sociological going on. And what's going on is that women are asking more intimacy from men than the traditional role of masculinity affords. So men are really under the gun. And men are not that unhappy. Men haven't changed that much. That's not a criticism. It's just a statement of fact. And so the status quo of marriage suits men, but it doesn't suit women. Women are asking for a real, intimate, emotional, connected, lifelong lover relationship. And frankly, a lot of men are coming up short and not very happy about it themselves.
So what's the solution?
Well, I got to tell you, Kamala, I think that by and large, the cultural pushback against this crisis has been to ask women to stand down, to go back in some ways to the 50s and not ask for so much. You hear about appreciating men's different kind of intimacy and men's brains and men's hearts and all of that. I don't do that. I want men to stand up. I want to empower women to stand up for what they're asking for. I think it's legitimate. I think that all of us would do better with a more intimate primary relationship. But I want men to stand up and meet those needs, meet those demands. So I take sides. And one of the distinguishing characteristics of the kind of couples therapy that I do and teach is that we do take sides. We start off by empowering the woman. We start off by saying, what you're asking for is good for everybody. It's legitimate. Don't back down. Then we turn to the man and say, there's some skills for you to learn. There's some old attitudes for you to unlearn. It's not that hard. We have helped hundreds, if not thousands of men open up their hearts and do this. Let's roll up our sleeves and get going. And by and large, if you put it to men that clearly and you let them know that you're going to be by their side and that there is a solution to this, they're game. Okay, what is it you want me to do?
So then how do men respond to this? This sounds like it would be a big challenge for most men.
It is a big challenge for most men, and I'll tell you why. I spoke about how women are asking for emotional intimacy, and most men have not been raised to deliver that. Let me be even more specific. The essence of traditional masculinity is invulnerability. Let me say that again. The essence of traditional masculinity is invulnerability. The more invulnerable a man is, the more manly he is. And the more vulnerable he is, the more girly he is, the more unmanly he is. And the problem, of course, is you cannot be emotionally intimate with another human being and be invulnerable at the same time. We connect. Brene Brown has made, a lot of money with this one point. Human beings connect through our vulnerabilities, through our imperfections. And so the biggest challenge for men is to not see all of this opening the heart business as weakness, but to really see it as something that's good for everybody, including them, and very much including their children. A lot of the guys who won't do this work for their own sake and won't even do this work for their, wives who they may have some issues with, will do this work for the sake of healthier children. A lot of times I'll ask a guy, what kind of father did you have? What kind of father do you want to be? What is the legacy that you want to pass on to your children? Okay, will you let me help you deliver on that? And men, by and large, will rise to the occasion when it's clear to them they want to give their children a better shot at a full life than they themselves had as kids.
One thing that I really want to hear more about is from the women's perspective, there's this leaning towards either being meek and kind of letting themselves get bulldozed versus like just bursting out and getting angry and being unsatisfied. And I would love to hear more about the middle path that women can walk, that how, if they're just fed up or they're frustrated or you're stuck in a gridlock or your nervous system is so overwhelmed from argumenting, then what can we really do?
Well, a lot of women do that, and across the board culturally, women as a group in some ways have made that transition. If the main role of women in the 20th century was to be disempowered, to be that meek and voiceless person you were talking about, when women busted out, and certainly in the early days of feminism, it went from disempowerment to what I call personal empowerment. And personal empowerment for women reads as, I was weak, now I'm strong, go screw yourself. I'm going to haul off and tell my truth in the way that comes to me, and I don't give a good what you think or how you feel about it. In other words, women moved from being that traditional codependent to being the kind of aggressive, having that aggressive voice that traditionally men have always had. And so neither of those extremes is what I want. I talk to people about what I call relational empowerment. And relational empowerment is, I was weak, now I'm strong, I'm going to bring my strength into this relationship, I'm going to hold my own, tell the truth, really request what I want, be forceful about it, and I'm going to help you out, I'm going to be humble and find out what I can do, and I'm going to cheer you on because I love you. I want you to succeed. You're my mate. And I want to tell you that this firm, loving voice for women, which I think is really the next step for women, has got a completely different energy to it than I'm going to haul off and tell you what's miserable about you and about our relationship. This is, we're a team. We both deserve to be happy. I'm unhappy about these things. What could I do to help you deliver for me? Because I want us both to be happy together. We love each other.
Yeah, I love that whole aspect of just being able to say, these are the things that I'm unhappy about, and this is what I want to change. This is how I can set you up to win so we can create that change. And I'm curious, how do you find that sometimes it's difficult for women to bring those things up and not have a man go into the traditional reaction, or maybe feels like he's being attacked, or he feels like, oh God, I need to fix another thing.
I've got another, witchy complaining woman on my hands. Let me just batten down the hatches and ignore her. Yeah, men will initially go through all those things. Most men, here's a little tip for women. Most men are criticismphobic. They really have vulnerability to feeling attacked, particularly by their nearest and dearest. And a lot of women will say, no matter how I say it, blah, 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 they always feel attacked. Here's some things to do. The first thing that a woman needs to do is inside herself. The first thing that either partner needs to do before you confront a difficult issue with your mate is inside yourself. And it's what I call remembering love. You remember that the person you're speaking to is a person you love. And you remember that the reason why you're speaking is not to score points or control anybody or just to retaliate or vent. These are all losing strategies. The reason why you're speaking is to make things better for both of you. Now, you get yourself situated there. You get centered in that space, and then you open up your mouth and talk. But if you're not in that space, if you're not feeling that the person you're speaking to is someone you love and the reason why you're talking is to make things better, don't talk. Splash some water on your face, take a walk around the block, but don't start until you remember who you're talking to. This is not the enemy, and you're not here just to vent or score points. You're here to help him win. You know, you want him to win because what winning means is he's giving you what you're asking for. So I have a golden rule of relational empowerment, and it reads like this. What can I give you to help you give me what I'm asking for? What can I give you to help you give me what I'm asking for? What do you need from me? How can I be of service to you? And you really do approach this with love and humility. These are the things I want. I want you to be more sexual. I want you to be more respectful. What do you need from me in order to pull this off? So you're not complaining about the person. You're putting yourself in the ring along with them. That's one. Two is leaven your complaints with appreciation. Tell your guy the things that he's doing right and the things that you appreciate, including I appreciate you listening to me right now. Three is front-loaded as a request, not as a complaint. It would mean the world to me if we had a better sex life. Honey, I would feel closer to you if I felt more respected in the way that you speak to me. Every complaint has a request in the center of it. It's what I call moving from a negative past focus to a positive future focus. Not this is what you did wrong, but this is what you could do more of that would be right. And of course, you are going to talk about what the guy did that was wrong. That's inevitable. But throw your weight around the solution. This is what you could do right that would help me. And then what could I do to help you do that?
I love how you just said every complaint has a request at the center of it. I mean, that right there can change a whole relationship if you really lead with the request rather than the complaint. And I think a big part of that is really getting tapped into our own individual need, our own individual desire, and know that love is at the center. It's not about him being wrong or you being right. It's about tapping into that underlying need that we all have and kind of identifying that and being able to communicate that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And, you know, in our culture, and maybe it's true everywhere, what first comes to us is what we're not getting. What first comes, you know, Maslow said a met need is not a motivator. So we're not walking around going, gee, I really appreciate my partner doing this, that, the other thing. We're walking around going, why didn't he do this? Why didn't she do that? And that's okay to start with between your ears. But sometimes when I'm working with couples, I literally have somebody sit down and write a piece of paper what the complaint is, flip the paper to the other side, and turn that into a request. It is as simple as the difference between saying, for example, I don't like how you're talking to me right now. That's the complaint. And instead, once you get used to doing this, it turns into, I want to hear what you're telling me. I could listen a lot better if you could lower your voice. Which of those two things do you think is going to get you more of what you want?
Definitely that request, right?
Yeah. So it's a skill. I talk about moving from complaint to request, and it's really critical when you're talking to men because men are defensive. In the world of men, you're either perfect or you're a bum. In the world of men, you're either up or down. You're either one up or one down. And so men have a tremendous vulnerability. You know, we talk about this, the common English phrase is the fragile male ego. And women know all about men's disowned fragility. And men are fragile in this way. They are defensive and prone to feeling attacked by women. And so it's really important to be appreciative of your guy and shift from complaint to request. The other thing I want to say to women is there are phases to getting what you want. The first phase is rocking the boat. The first phase is grabbing your guy by the collar and in no uncertain terms saying, this is really important to me. Could we please work on it? Get his attention. And that can be fairly assertive. Once the guy is attending and willing, drop the sword and the shield and soften up. Once the guy is willing, the next step is breaking it down and helping them by really showing them what you want. We know this sexually. We teach our lovers how to be good lovers for us. But it's the same thing with emotion, with communication, with all sorts of things. Honey, let me teach you how you could talk to me in a way that would work better. Honey, I don't want a problem-solving listener right now. I want to vent for 10 minutes, and I want you to just be nice. So you instruct the guy up front rather than waiting for him to fail and then criticizing him. And then the third phase, the first is rocking the boat. The second is breaking it down. And then the third phase is making it worth his while. And I ask women to celebrate the glass 15% full. That glass was only 5% full a week ago. So I can't tell you how many women, the guy finally gets his head around it. He squeaks out a few changes. He's trying in his way, but it's pretty weak at first. And rather than celebrate the effort, a lot of women will go, well, that was only a 15% job. I mean, what about the other 85%? Which is discouraging for everybody. So rock the boat. Once you have the guy's attention, stop rocking the boat, lose a chip on your shoulder, soften up, teach him what it is that you want, and reward him for trying. Those are some tips for women about how to get more of what you want.
That's really great. I know that a lot of my clients, and then even I do this, is I get caught in thought loops, and I watch women do this where they just rehearse something over and over and over in their head, and they don't know how to break out of it. And I know that I have some tips that I support my clients with, but I would love to hear what you would say.
Well, I think that by and large, people rehearse. You're in the shower and you're talking to your partner and letting him have it. I think that is exactly a rehearsal. And what needs to happen is you need to move from the rehearsal to the actual performance. Once these things get said, you stop ruminating in your head about them. But a lot of women are doing that rehearsal because they really feel like, I don't know how to talk to this guy without him being defensive. And if I could just hit the piñata this way instead of that way, maybe I could get him to see my point of view. And the answer to that is I want women to stop being so afraid and so reactive. I want women to feel firm and be able to put their foot down. And guys will listen to you to the degree to which you make it clear that it's really important to you and that he, to be honest, damn well better listen to you. So stop pussyfooting around. Use your skills. Keep it positive, but let him know in no uncertain terms that you mean business. That's the role for women. Loving firmness. If you lose the firmness, the guy's going to roll over. If you lose the lovingness, he's going to stonewall and not listen. So that's the recipe for women.
Now that we've really touched on women, what are some of the key skills that men can use as a way to become better listeners, become more open-hearted, and be more receptive?
Get over this being attacked business. Lose your male pride, get past your ego, and try and attend to your partner's feelings with compassion. So many men, when faced with a partner who's unhappy about this or that or the other thing, moves into argument. Well, I didn't do that. Well, I did that, but you have to understand that. And what I teach men is what I call relational jujitsu. I'm on the East Coast. I like being by the water. A lot of guys, when that big wave of the woman's dissatisfaction comes, will stand up and take it full in the chest and then punch back. I don't want you to do that. I want you to duck under the wave, pop up the other side, and keep standing. Don't fight your women. Be compassionate. Understand what their feelings are. And you know what? Be a little flexible and try and give. Part of what's difficult is that in the traditional lexicon of men, it's unmanly to be empathic. It's unmanly to be vulnerable. It's unmanly to be flexible. This is ridiculous. One of the things that I say to guys is the very things you learned as a boy about what it means to be a good man, a strong man, are the qualities that by today's standards are going to ensure that you're a lousy husband. So men need to move beyond the traditional masculine role, and they need to move into vulnerability. They need to understand that emotion and vulnerability is not a weakness. And here's another thing men need to understand. I've gotten a lot of mileage with it. You know what? If your listeners just get this one thing, then it'll be worth their while to have listened to this podcast. Here it is. Ready? There is no redeeming value in harshness. There is no redeeming value of any kind in harshness. There's nothing that harshness does that loving firmness doesn't do better. And men are harsh. They're mostly harsh on themselves, but they can be harsh in the way that they treat others, or they can experience themselves being harshly treated when they're not. So I want men to step up to the plate. You know, if I can tell you a story, I had a guy, I called him my Clint Eastwood guy. He really was a dead ringer for Clint Eastwood, younger. He was from Wyoming. He was a cowboy, in fact, and a real bullet biter, kind of one-word guy. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to him about how harshness has no redeeming value of any kind. There's nothing that harshness does that loving firmness doesn't do better. And doggone it, he starts to cry. And, you know, they're Clint Eastwood tears. They're like maybe one or two tears that stream down his face with no particular change of expression. But they're there. And I turn to him and I say, you're crying because you're thinking about how harsh you've been with yourself all these years. And he said, no, these tears are for my sons and how destructive I've been in their lives. So I want men to soften up. I want men to open their hearts. I want men to be compassionate to their women and to their children. If your wife comes to you and says she's not happy about something, don't argue with her. Don't reference what's right and what's wrong. Stay in the relationship. Reference her dissatisfaction. She's the woman you love. Okay, you want her to feel better. It's not about whether she's valid in her feelings or not. It's that this is the woman you love. How can I help you feel better about me and about this relationship that we're in? Lay down your arms. Get past your ego. Let go of your pride. So jujitsu means that you go under, that you use the force that's coming at you against the self rather than take it as a punch in the chest and then punch back. So, for example, you ready? Louis, I have a saying. I can teach you how to disarm an unhappy, angry woman within 2 minutes, 50% of the time. Doesn't work all the time, but half the time it'll work. Pretty good, huh?
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right. You want to know what it is?
Go for it.
Give her what she's asking for. You want to hear that again?
If you said 50% success rate?
Yeah.
Wow.
At least.
That's pretty good.
It's very disarming. And what I teach people in general and men in particular is when you're faced with a dissatisfied partner, acknowledge everything you can about what they're saying. Yes, I did that. And give everything that you can of what they're asking for. Okay, let me give you this. Now, what I'm going to give you may only be 20% of what you asked for, but I'm not going to talk about the things I'm not going to give you. I'm going to front load the things I am going to give you. So my wife says to me, Terry, you were late. You yelled at the kids. You're a selfish jerk. You don't care about anybody but yourself. And you think your time is more important than everybody else's. And what I want you to do is I want you to apologize to me for being late. I want you to apologize to the kids for being late. I want you to get on medication. I want you to get into 5-day-a-week psychoanalysis. And I want you to go inpatient for at least 5 weeks. And here's what I say on an A+ day. You ready? B, honey, I was late. You're absolutely right. And I could have called or texted, and I didn't. And that was thoughtless of me. And you know what? This isn't the first time I've done that either. That's acknowledging everything you can. And I'm going to tell you something. I do apologize to you, and I'm going to go right upstairs, and I'm going to apologize to those kids, and I'm going to think really seriously about whether or not I need more therapy. Thanks for bringing this to my attention. Bye.
That's an A+ day. That's great.
I love how you put it in the terms of A+ day, because we don't always have those, you know?
No, we don't. Even my wife and I don't have A+ days every day of our lives.
Well, one thing that I want to ask you is that women can be really emotional. Me, I can be a very emotional person. Mm-hmm. And, you know, sometimes, and I've read this in many books and a lot of research, that men kind of can short circuit around that kind of emotion. What would you say to men who are having that experience where the woman's really emotional and they just either shut down or they get angry or something like that?
Yeah. Well, what I would say is put your big boy pants on and stand there and don't run away or try and control it. You can be compassionate and hear her out. Now, it does help if the woman is clear with the guy that this is time limited. That's another little tip. I need to talk to you about something I'm upset by. It's going to take maybe 10 minutes tops, because the minute a guy is faced with an emotional woman, he thinks he's going to be up with this issue until 4 a.m. This is going to go on forever. So it's reassuring for the guy to know that this is time limited. But within that parameter, you know, there's a great AA saying, don't just do something, stand there. And the secret for men is to stand in the discomfort of being with an emotional partner. And you don't have to fix it. You don't have to change it. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to run away. All you have to do is be there in her experience of her emotion. This is very difficult for men. Have either of you seen, and I'd like to recommend this to your listeners as well, seen the little video clip, It's Not About the Nail?
No, I've never seen that.
Oh my God. You have to go to YouTube and get this. I'll spoil it by telling everybody, but go see it anyway. It's really very funny. This woman is sitting on the couch with her boyfriend, and she says something like this. Yeah, I've been getting these horrible, horrible headaches, and I feel this stiffness in my forehead, and I even am having trouble sleeping. It's just so dreadful. And she turns sideways, and you see that there's like a 3-inch nail in her forehead. And the guy goes, well, have you ever thought about, maybe taking that nail out of your forehead? And the woman goes, there you go again, always trying to solve my problems. You never listen to my feelings. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. And finally he goes, gee, I'll bet that feels really terrible. And she goes, oh, my sweetheart, and goes to hug him. Of course, the nail hits her head. But women need to be listened to. I teach men all over the country how to be empathic listeners. They're there. That sounds like it sucks. Tell me more about it. You don't have to fix it, and you don't have to run away from it. It is a skill that men can learn, but they have to tolerate the discomfort of it. And it's okay. We can be a little uncomfortable. One of the things I say is it's not that women are weak and men are strong traditionally. It's that each is strong and weak in the other's domain. So we don't ask women to wrestle wild animals, and we don't ask men to sit with wild feelings. But you know what? Women can be stronger and men can be more open-hearted. They're not going to die. I think the important thing is that you have to deal with each other. Women have to speak in loving ways that men can reasonably listen to, and men need to get over their pride and listen to their women and care about what they're saying, even if they don't see it their way. Women need to be more powerful, and men need to be more open and more generous. And not dealing with each other and just letting things fester is a really bad idea. So take each other on, even if it's a little bit sloppy. You're better off than trying to live without and just letting that resentment build up. That resentment will kill you.
What a powerful, powerful message that you've given us. You've given us so many gems throughout this whole episode. And I want to encourage everyone, check out terryreal.com. It's been really amazing to have you on the show, Terry Real.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a joy to talk with both of you.
You've been listening to the Thriving Launch podcast. For books and resources related to today's episode, make sure to head over to thrivinglaunch.com. We'll see you there. Be sure to tune in to tomorrow's episode where we're going to talk about overcoming adversity with Bedros Keuilian.